Okay, recording now. And the two questions that we're going to explore, one is more an overarching question about visibility and why it is an important process to write a book, why it's important that women build their visibility. The other question is much more personal, it's much more tangible, nuts and bolts about the process of writing a book and what these women have experienced, what they might want to pass on, and any questions that we can get through that you might personally have, which is why the chat is open. And I will try to watch those as well, because we really want to be able to not only talk about moving women forward through the process of writing books and getting those books out and talked about and into the hands of the people that need them, but also some of the things, maybe break through some beliefs or myths, or I always believe it's important to show what is possible by talking to people who have recently completed something that might be a bit overwhelming to you right now. So without further ado, we're missing one of our speakers, but that's okay. Oh, maybe she's here now. Let me know when you're back on, Tina. So without further ado, I want to welcome you to the second webinar in our Women Built to Scale series. We will be hosting at least one webinar per month. Some months you'll see two throughout this year, dedicated to helping women to scale up their business, their impact, their lives as leaders. And we kicked it off last month with a great conversation with three very powerful Canadian women, and we just talked about this concept of, you know, what's holding us back, what do more women need to do to scale, what are some of the blocks or barriers. And one of the things that came out was actually the importance of visibility, which I thought was very, very interesting. And we talked about the need for a clear roadmap of the behavioral changes that women could make, what is within our control that we can change or that we can do in order to move ourselves forward faster. And one thing that we'll be including as a bit of follow-up to when we send out the recording is actually a very recent report by a firm, Korn Ferry, that has just published a report about interviewing CEOs and the need of the small percentage of female CEOs of top Fortune 500 companies and some of their thoughts around this. So one thing that came out in last month's conversation is, yes, there are amazing women doing incredible things, but no one knows about them. There's a lack of visibility that that is happening. And so I want to introduce and thank the guests for being here today that we have on the call. And I'm just going to take them one at a time, read a very short bio, and also ask them to just comment on why they feel that today's conversation, specifically about the process of writing a book, authoring a book, and then getting it out to the world, is an important conversation. So, welcoming Sybil Virch. Sybil is a TV producer and host, a leader, and the author of her book, The Female Edge. The note is there's a new bottom line in business today. It's women add value and increase profitability. So welcome, Sybil. Thank you very much for being here today. And question is, why do you think it's an important conversation?
Well, we need more female role models in order to change the dial, move the needle. And one way of doing that is getting women to really find their voice and ensure that their voice is projecting far and wide. I'm a big believer that people need to do great things and ensure, more importantly than doing great things, they need to ensure people know about it. For most women, this is an uncomfortable feeling to have because they don't want to brag, they don't want to be seen as bragging. But I'll tell you, there's three main reasons why I think it's important to ensure people know about the great work all of you are doing. Number one, it creates awareness on the message and/or your business. What is it that you are trying to relay, whether it's promoting your business, building your profile, or getting across your key messages. So sharing the great things you do raises the profile. It also raises the profile number 2 of the cause that you're supporting. So whether it's maybe you're supporting a lot of charitable endeavors in your community, it's bringing awareness to that organization. In this particular case, we're talking about empowering more women and having more female role models. So spreading our message brings attention and awareness to that issue. And number 3, it inspires others to follow. I know that young women, and if you think about teenage girls and who they have as role models in their lives, we need more women to step up to the plate and to write their books and to publicly speak, because that opens the door for more media opportunities. And the more that the young women see women getting their equal share of the limelight, the more those women will see whatever those career options are as realistic for them to achieve. So that's why I think we're here.
Thank you. Yes, very much agree. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Erin Thorpe to the call. Erin is an empathic people and project leader. She's the author of Inside Out Empathy. She is from Calgary, and her book is about exploring the underestimated superpower essential for building, developing, and inspiring a rock-solid team. Thank you, Erin, for being here. And why do you feel that this is such an important conversation?
Yeah, there's not much to say after Sybil said it. So, but I have a couple of things. I just think a lot of us have probably had that thought at one point or another, that we have a story or a piece of wisdom that we want to share. And, but I think it's often very quickly discounted, right? That the bigger, bolder voice in our head that says, don't do it, or it's scary, sort of takes over. And so I think today's conversation is important because you're hearing from 3 people that have done it, and an organization that supports you moving through the process. And I think that's the other reason we're here, is that you're not alone, and that there is a process and there's different ways to go about doing it. I know just in our initial call, all 3 of us had very different approaches. And so there is a way to find your way through it, whatever that looks like.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Zena Amundsen is calling in today from Regina, and Zena is a certified financial planner. She is the author of The Heart of Your Money, which is a woman's guide on how to create your family financial values system and take control of your money. She very much believes in adding heart to business and money. Welcome, Zena, and wondering if you have anything to add about why today's conversation is important, why you're taking the time to be on our call.
Yeah, I think everyone has said beautifully, it's all the same things, but it's really about stepping up to the challenge. That's what I think it is. And if we can tackle that challenge head on, we're going to come out with confidence muscle, and we're going to be able to stand up and help others climb that ladder. And I think, when we talked earlier, we each have kind of a different story, but our end, the end picture is identical. It's about lifting each other up. And a couple of words that come to mind is that confidence muscle for me, and stepping up to the challenge. And if you can commit and step up to this, the growth level is phenomenal. I mean, from here, you kind of soar, and there's a pendulum swing that keeps going. So this has been quite a journey of a lot of learning. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. I think if I have anything to add, why I feel today is an important conversation to be had is around coordinating action. I think the one thing that we have now that maybe we didn't have in the past is the ability, if we want to respond to it, of the ability to coordinate our effort and our action. We can have one call and get brilliant minds on this call and pass on wisdom and tips and tools and ideas that'll catapult everybody forward, rather than everybody going out and trying to figure this out on their own, which I feel is one of the reasons that's slowed women down in the past. So one of my drivers for coordinating Women Built to Scale is to help coordinate the effective use of our time and our energy and our action. And I'm grateful to have everybody on the call today. The last person that I would, and she's joining us just now, I will stretch it out shortly here. I'd like to welcome Tina O to the call. Tina Overbury is a core story coach, and she is the instructor of the published program in the Leap Learning Lab, which is our partner through PowHERhouse, our learning lab partner, speaking of coordinated action. And Tina believes that if you truly want to be seen, you need to be heard. Your book connects you with your talk, which leads to your online program. And together, this is a platform for your story, but it all begins with your book. I want to welcome you, Tina, and let you catch your breath. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm wondering if the ladies were just reflecting on a very quick, why do we feel like today's conversation, this hour is an important one to be had right now? I wonder if you have anything. I know you didn't get a chance to hear the other answers. If you have anything that you'd like to speak to that.
I think that, well, you know, every day is a good day to tell your story. Like, let's just be real about that. But I also think that there is a wave of momentum right now. And someone said this to me a long time ago, that when a wave comes, you can either get on it or you can let it crash to the rocks and wait for the next one. And there is a beautiful wave right now that's very empowered, and there's a need right now that women are answering. And I think that writing your book, owning your platform, is part of that. And I think that certainly in the work that you do, Shar, and what PowHERhouse is all about, it's not just about being an expert in the industry. It's about owning the work that you're here to do. And it's got a really different vibration to it almost, you know? And so I think that's a big piece of it for me. And you know it when you feel it, and it's happening right here. So to me, it's all about saying yes. It's like saying yes to the yes that's already coming and matching that yes with yours. And it's powerful.
Thank you. That was really awesome. I love the wave thing, and I love matching the yes. That was awesome. Thank you. So we're going to dive right into our first question, and we have approximately 15 minutes for this first question. We want to leave lots of time for the actual nuts and bolts. If we don't take 15, that's fine. Please don't feel it. So this one, I'll read out the question first, and that is, this is a collective question. So if women are going to be bigger, bolder, and braver, in order to scale their growth, in order to scale their impact, they must also scale their visibility. I'm just going to say it right out there. It's a must. So what piece to the authors, what piece of the visibility puzzle do you feel writing a book could play for women, not only in the process of writing the book in terms of preparing them, but in the actual execution and stepping into a more visible role as the author once your book is written? I'm wondering if you could speak to, from your own experience, the piece of the puzzle that you feel writing a book plays and has played for you. And I'm going to start again with Sybil, if that's okay.
Great. Well, first of all, the actual writing of the book itself forces you as women to get your thoughts on paper and really be clear about what are your key messages and what is it you're wanting to tell the world. So the process alone was fantastic and empowering in its own right. It was also really harder than I thought it was going to be, but the feeling at the end when you accomplish it is unbelievable. Once the book is written and you've got your thoughts formulated on paper, Now is when the hard work comes in terms of ensuring your message is heard by as many people as possible. And it's all about marketing your book. You have to let people know you've written a book and talk to them about why they should read your book. I know in my own personal circumstance, I was inspired to write the book in the first place, The Female Edge, because I do believe women have an edge right now. We're having this conversation. We know women add profitability to the bottom line. So where are all the women? That was my big why I wrote it in the first place. And in the journey of writing it, I did some research and discovered the issue wasn't as much the old boys club getting in the way as it was women getting in their own way. Women being faced with challenges and obstacles like lack of confidence or self-limiting beliefs or toxic relationships, lack of goal setting. And so when I uncovered what the obstacles were, it inspired me to write my own personal story because I faced those same challenges and how I overcame them and tips for overcoming those challenges in their life. So the end result for me is I want women to not have anything get in their way from achieving what's important to them. I want them to think bigger than they think today and put their hand up so that we can actually move the needle forward. So all that's fine and dandy, but now that I've written this book, how are people going to know about it and how do I get people reading it? And that's where the promotion comes in. And Charlene, the fantastic work that you're doing at PowHERhouse to create this platform and this medium is just unbelievable. So thank you for that. And it has also opened the door for media opportunities. So I was live interviewed on global television. I had an editorial opinion published in the province. I am then proactively reaching out to people and letting them know I've written this book as it fits within their objectives and my objectives, looking for mutually beneficial win-win scenarios. And as I get the story told, more and more people are reading the book, buying the book, and it's starting to leverage out there. And the benefit of that is, back to my earlier comment, threefold. So number one, I'm building up my brand as a thought leader on gender equality. Number two, I'm raising awareness of the issue at hand, which is gender equality and how do we move the needle. And number three, I hope to inspire other women to take action, write their own story, write their own book, get in the media, public speak. Just get out there and tell your story. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to continue on with this, and whether it's your own, from your own experience or reflecting on, the big picture, Erin, again, the piece of the puzzle that you feel writing the book has played or could play for women in terms of building visibility, not only in writing it, but then what?
Yeah, I think both the writing it and the then what for me has been a little bit of that push out of the nest, right? We can talk about thinking bigger and taking bolder action and doing great things in the world. But for me, the process of writing, publishing, and now marketing a book has really been that push out of the nest to get out there. The book helped me clarify the message, just as Sybil said, but it really, I didn't want to just sit on a book, right? So you have this book and you put all this time and effort into it. So by writing it, it forces you to take that next step to get your message out there, unless you want to sit with a bunch of books in your office. But I don't think most of us do. So yeah. And just the people that know you are like, hey, did you know that she did this? And it kind of grows this life of its own, whether you're ready for it or not, and whether you're actually having the conversations or not. The people that believe in you, that are around you and support you, sort of naturally help you grow that message. And so a little bit of that, just out you go.
When I think about your journey, Erin, and it's something new to add to the conversation, what I think is so cool is, the ability of writing a book, which to me is another form of media, Media meaning the power to influence, right? So it's another tool. So one of the pictures that you posted, and I know it probably felt a bit weird to you, but one of the pictures you posted, which I was so proud of, was your book sitting in a chapters right up there next to some other very incredible books. So for me, the power of you seeing and recognizing that, you know what, I'm right up there alongside these other women. That's the whole point of media. It's for you to see that you're there. It's the mirror. Media is the mirror, which is so incredible. So in terms of, you know, something new to the conversation, from your experience, it was you being able to see, like, I'm right up there alongside, literally alongside those other books. So incredible. Zena, in terms of, you know, how has life shifted your visibility since you wrote your book? What are some of the things that you've noticed happening?
Well, I love that mirror idea, that analogy that you used, because it is about it's about stepping in and forcing you to step into your power and your confidence. And so that mirror, holding it up and saying, you know what, holy crap, like, I did okay. It's that pat on the back that we're not used to giving each other. I mean, it's a science. There's a book there called The Confidence Code, and they actually have a science behind our lack of confidence. So we're not just making that up. And I think, you know, here's an example. Before the book had come out, I had an interview on being an advisor, right? And had been working really hard. I know, Sybil, you talked about, you know, putting yourself out there and getting into the media. I had that interview and then I buried it, right? Oh, I didn't answer it right. Oh, it didn't sound very good. And I didn't send a note and follow up to say to Patty, you know, like, thanks for the conversation and such, because I didn't have the confidence. Funny, it took writing a book for me to be like, oh, yeah, I'm okay. So what's changed? Every step, there's a whole new layer of confidence that's happening. And yeah, there's still the gremlins telling you, oh man, you suck. Who are you? Who do you think you are? Right? But then you come back to the book, then you get a review, you talk to people that let you know, hey, you know, I read your book, like, that was awesome. I really felt it. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm okay. And it's that strength that then helps us help other women, because we have to have that self-love and self-worth with ourselves in conversation. It's sort of like on the airplane, the mask drops. You have to take the oxygen first. We have to build it, and then we can help other women get there. And so it's catapulted a whole new future, right? I'm rewriting the business plan. Yeah.
Tina, I was just going to ask, you know, you've heard the authors answer this question, and just wondering, in your work as the core story coach and the work that you do, if you have anything to add, I'm sure you have a lot to add, but what you'd most like to add to this part of the conversation?
I think, thank you, Shar. I think the biggest piece that I witness with clients, that I witness with women wanting to get a program on the lab, it's all the same piece, and it all stems down into one question that we're called to ask and answer ourselves, which is, what would you take a stand for? What would you take a stand for? And I think the biggest piece, that committing to writing our story, and I really want to connect the dots here, that there are many layers to writing a book. For some women, they're taking a stand for themselves, and writing the book is that. For others in the process, they're writing a book to take a stand for in an audience. They want an audience to read it, and they're ready to own whatever that stand is. And I think that it, as you know, to Zena's point, it's a confidence builder, and it's also like, once that confidence is in place, it's a being seen. It's a saying, I matter, and my voice matters, and so does yours, and so does yours, and so does yours. And what is it in our deeper purpose? Not that I prescribe to the idea that you have to have a purpose to breathe, because I don't, but that thing inside of you matters. And oh my gosh, we have this one glorious life to live it out. And writing the book kind of gifts us that, where we remember, yeah, that's me. And then we get to see other people too. So, but it's about taking a stand in that visibility piece and living into the risk of that stand.
I love that. I love the taking a stand. A couple of notes I wrote down, and then we'll move on to our nuts and bolts question is, for me, the process of writing a book helps a woman to be prepared. Like for me, the exciting part is when the book is written. I guess you probably picked that up, because everything else is your process. It's your process. It's your preparation process. It's this gestation period of I'm getting ready. And now you're able to answer that question, what are you ready for? The piece that is exciting after that is everything that happens, which is why we've developed the PowHERreads program, because we want to help make sure that these books get into the hands of the leaders that most need to read them. So as Sybil said, you may work on how is this most relatable to the current events happening right now. And that puts you right into the mainstream media conversations. It is all about the strategic action. I'm all for putting your book on Amazon and making bestseller, but for me, it's about who are the leaders that need to know that you've taken a stand and want to use your book for their highest purpose. It's a very, very strategic plan that happens, and I get excited to help you answer the question, okay, now what? I've written a book, now what? So that's part of the purpose of this conversation. And I know a lot of women have written really great books. We want to make sure that they're visible. We want to help them build their visibility and get them out to where they need to be. So we're going to keep going now with our second question, and I'll mix it up a little bit. But in terms of the nuts and bolts of writing a book, I think that a lot of women that are on this call and that watch the call recording, they probably still feel fairly overwhelmed about the idea of writing a book, or that it's still just beyond their reach. I'm wondering if you can reflect back on your journey and perhaps share the top 1 or 2 things that you learned from the process that you'd like to pass on to other women. Once you've each had a chance to share, I'm going to open it up for a bit of a dialogue, and other questions may come up through the chat, or if people unmute themselves, if the sound works okay. But we do have about 20 minutes or even a little more to go through this question. So I'd like to start with Zena this time, if that's okay. And what are the top 1 or 2 things that you think, God, if I had never started this yet, what would I have wished someone just beyond me on this path would have passed back to me?
Well, one of the things that's important, I think, is habit. It's about committing to that goal and then giving yourself, I don't know if people schedule a workout. You schedule something and it's an appointment with yourself. And then it's also then a goal with an end date. I did learn it early on. I set up early on a goal, but for the first month, there was a little bit of wishy-washy, and then it was pull up my big girl pants, and here's the end date, and that's when it's going to happen. So it's about habit and then setting a timeline. Of course, you have to give yourself, love and down to the exact date. You don't want to set yourself up for a big pity party, but within reason, an end date. Yeah.
Nice.
That was important for me.
Yeah. And I love that. Commitment, conviction, hunger.
Yeah.
Great. Erin, what would you most like to pass on? A couple of things to kick off this part.
So to build on what Zena said, and the project manager in me, it is a project. So you do need to have a plan and a schedule. You don't need to build it by yourself, I think, is the big thing. I think when a lot of us hear self-publish, we think that the person did it by themselves. And that's not the case. For most of us anyway. There are still a few people that have absolutely done every step of the book by themselves. For myself, I had quite a large team helping me, and it was great. It's the only reason that the book is here today, to be honest with you. It held me accountable to my deadlines because I also work better if there's some reciprocal accountability. But I think if I can look back and like, what did I need to know today that I wish I would have known before? It would be that there's really 3 phases. There's kind of the writing of the manuscript, which is like you alluded to earlier, Shar, your process and your gestation about the message and what it is you're talking about, which I equate to like a warm up. And if we're going to use, I know you love sports analogies, so we'll go with that because that's kind of what came to mind when I was sitting down reflecting on this question. So it's really like the warm up to this whole process. It seems like the big piece, but it's not. Publishing is a really high intensity workout. There's lots of back and forth between you and the publisher and the editors, and there's short timelines. I mean, you can put long ones in there, but it just drags the process out. But to me, that was really the really intense process and part of the book. It builds a lot of muscle because there's lots of feedback and lots of opportunity for those gremlins and that negative self-talk as you're getting, input from everybody around what the message should be and what did you really mean to say. So that felt really high intensity was just the word I used to describe it. And the marketing phase is phase number 3. And this is the marathon that nobody tells you about. So after you warm up and you've done your high intensity workout, now you have to go run a marathon, and nobody has prepared you for this marathon that you need to run. And that's where I'm at right now. Right. And so it's a whole new ball game, learning how to manage your energy and your commitments and your schedule. It's important though, right? This is why you wrote the book. This is the work now. So that's what I wish somebody would have told me a while ago.
So valuable. So valuable. Thank you. I love the analogy. I absolutely love it. Sybil, what would you say the top 1 or 2 things you wish someone had passed along to you before you started this whole process?
Well, the one thing I want to say to everyone on the call is, as Nike would say, just do it. Commit to it. But the lessons I learned, if I could go back in time, is number 1, be crystal clear on who you want to read it, who's your target audience, because that will help shape the content that goes into the book, and it will make running that marathon a little bit easier at the end. So really know what your message is, but who you want to communicate it to, and who's going to buy your book. And think about that as you're writing it, because it will help along the way. The other thing I wish I knew was it's okay to hire a writer. There's a ton of ghostwriters out there. They will interview you. You need to be clear on what you want to communicate and how, and the right writer will use your voice. So it will sound like you. You still edit it and hire other editors, but it was already talked about, as Erin said, have a team around you. You do not need to do this by yourself. As a matter of fact, I don't know anyone who would have done the whole thing by themselves. And the third and final thing is nobody prepared me for how vulnerable I would feel. That was bizarre. I'm an optimist, so I think, yeah, just do it. I'm going to write a book, and I go to town and get it done. And I did get it done. But I remember handing that over to my husband as the first proofreader, and I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh. And I think if somebody had told me up front that was going to be normal, it's not going to be perfect. It will never be perfect. Every author will always go back and criticize their work and say, I should have done this, I should have done that. You just need to get over it and be okay with that, and know that every author, I think, goes through the exact same process and that feeling of vulnerability.
Great. I'm going to pass it off to Tina to see if she's got anything to add. But the one piece I just wanted to say is, as these little ideas, like, they're gold. Seriously, I think what you're sharing is absolute gold. I love learning this way. I like relatable learning. If I'm going to do something, I will find the most powerful woman I know that excels in that area, and she will become my new best friend, because I want the most straightest path to where I want to get to. So I really appreciate the gold you're sharing. If something tweaked with you, especially around ghostwriting, having some help with interviewing. I know that Tina has people in her network. I know that PowHERhouse definitely has people in our network, that if there's a piece of those that really resonates, that's not something you have to go out hunting for, okay? Just please know that we have, you know, people that can help you in that area. Tina, I wondered if anything that the ladies had just mentioned, anything came up for you.
Yeah, they're all awesome. Like, they're all so awesome. I would say that in my work, what I notice is all writers are different, just as all human beings are different. And we all communicate differently, and we all feel safe in different ways, and we all express ourselves in different ways. And so my recommendation, and it's going to sound a bit pitchy, but it's actually in Publish, we have a 3-phase program, and phase 1 is called Core Story. And we call it that because the one deliverable that you leave with is your 1-pager. Because the 1-pager, I always suggest that writers start with the 1-pager, because the 1-pager is the one thing you use in, I also come from a film background, and your 1-pager addresses pre-production when you're looking for development money, right? Or you're calling in your experts. It's what you use when you're actually writing the script, or in writing a book. When you're writing the book, it's the heartbeat of it. And it's what you use in post-production when you're editing, so in film, editing the film, or when you're using it in marketing after post-production. It's the one document that is your silent partner and your strongest partner through the entire process. And within that 1-pager, it answers your who, what, when, where, why, and how, which is the spine. Think of it like your body. It's like the spine. It holds you up through the whole thing. And so there's that. And I would highly recommend creating a 1-pager. And I'm happy to send out a little brief, in brief 1-pager, so you've all got it, so you can use it. And as well, for a fun thing, for a super duper duper fun thing, write your engine room chapter first. And the engine room chapter is the vision that woke you up about the book. And when you watch movies, you can see which one is the engine room chapter. In the movie, you're like, oh, because it's usually in the trailer. And it's like the one where you can see, oh my gosh, that is the scene that the writer saw in their head before they wrote the book. Write that for you, because it's like walking with your heartbeat when you're writing your book. And it reminds you that it matters to you, and you love it. It's like having a love affair with your book.
Oh, very cool. Love that. I'm going to ask the women that are on the call to start to think about if they have a question, a burning question that they'd like to make sure gets answered. You can put it in the chat. While we see if there's any specific questions from anyone on the call, I will carry on with one more to the authors, and that is sticking with the nuts and bolts thing. This is something that I was very curious about, and you can add to it or play with it as you want. There's 2 pieces to it. How long did it take you, approximately, and what did it cost, just ballpark? And the number one thing you do differently next time. So I'd like to start with Erin. You can answer all 3 of those, one of those, any of those, but curious about how long, approximate costs. I know people wonder these things. Mm-hmm. And if there was one thing you would do differently next time, what would it be?
All right. Approximate costs from the timeline from the time I had that little voice that said, you should write a book, to actually having a book on my hands was about 1.5 years. Okay. I wrote the manuscript in about 3.5 months. It sat on a shelf for a while until I decided to actually press play and put it out there. And then from the first edit to launching it and being fully published was about 5 months. So that's kind of the time frame. So there's a bit of a pause in there to regroup myself. Mm-hmm. Approximate costs, I want to say probably around the 10 grand mark, just everything, coaches hired, and the team and editors, and in that's probably a good ballpark for the process I went through. I did have a ton of people help me out, because that's the only way I was able to do it. And what was the third question? Because I had something about that.
Oh, sorry. The number one thing you do differently next time.
I would tell people about it before I actually had the book in my hand. I think I waited too long because I was scared. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you. That's
Yeah.
absolute gold. Build that crowd, build the tribe, build the following, yeah. Awesome. Zena, timeline, cost, and the number one thing you do different next time.
Well, when I make a decision, I want things like now. And so I jumped full in. The writing process was 4 months. It was 1,000 words a day at the end of my work day. So at about 4:30 or 5, I would write every night for about 3 hours and on Saturdays. And then after that, there was a pause over Christmas. And so there was about a month before it went into editor's hands. And then it went into a wonderful woman edit it for me. I love her now. Maybe not so much at the time. And she was awesome for staying on track. And she was probably about 6 weeks. I don't know. I didn't count, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And so it was a quick process. Cost was $3,500 plus I think my editor was $1,500 or $1,800. I can't remember, somewhere in there. So cost was very cheap, but I did a lot of work. And so my only team really was the publisher. We did 2 one-hour brainstorms, and we actually mind mapped everything. By the time I decided, I was pretty clear in what I had wanted and was open to anything. But with those 2 1 hours mind mapping, we had everything on the go. So it was a little bit less expensive in that regards. However, I may be paying for that now in the end, because the one thing I would change, I was so just like the Nike thing that Sybil said, just do it. Thank God I did, because otherwise I probably would have analyzed everything and talked myself out of it. But I was so focused on that and doing it that I missed the mark of coming up with any marketing plan during or before or any dream. It was, I'm just going to write this damn book. And so I hadn't planned, now what? So when Erin talks about the marathon, oh, hell yeah. So now's a marathon. So now I may be making up that savings compared to some in extra money with marketing and press and publicity with a publicist. So I haven't quite decided on that, but
great.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So a little bit different.
Yeah. Thank you. Sybil, what about you?
Well, I think when I look at just the cost of writing the book, hiring the editors, etc., it's about $10,000. How long it took? 3 years. And I must justify that. That was 3 years from when I first had the idea. And literally that day that I had the idea, I wrote out my chapter outline. I knew exactly what I was going to talk about. And that pretty much is verbatim what is in my final product. But I also, as you all are, very busy in my regular work life and family life. So I would go into spurts. So I would write a couple of chapters and then I would shelf it for a few months. I did talk about it with people while it was underway and told people I'm writing a book, what's it about? And I was very open about that, and that helped keep me on task. And it also gave me the opportunity to do more research and fine-tune my target market and make those adjustments in the book. But then by the end of the day, it did take 3 years to get it completed. I did spend additional money after the fact. I hired someone to do some PR work for me, and that's how I got the global television interview and the editorial opinion published in the province, for example. That was about $5,000 in PR work that covered a number of different things, but those were 2 actual outcomes as a result of that spend that were worth something. And it's not just about then being on television or published in the paper. I then use those pieces when communicating from a sales perspective to my target markets. And I know there was a question I saw pop in on the chat, so maybe I'll touch base on that.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah, please.
But my primary target market is organizations. So I'm not going after the individual one-on-one readers. I'm going after organizations that are trying to inspire more women to enter their industry, to climb the corporate ladder within their organizations. I'm wanting to do public speaking in front of women's groups, because my whole book is about, it's a very similar mission, Charlene, to what you're putting together here. It's one piece of that. And so when I'm reaching out to those organizations, having a book, sending them the global television interview, sending them the editorial in the province, testimonials, all of that helps build credibility and it piques their interest. So once I go speak, then like I spoke at a industry conference for women only, there was 50 women in attendance, and the organization bought a copy of my book for everyone in attendance. So that was great. Now I want to expand that into larger groups. If I could go back, and the one thing that I would do differently is I would hire a ghostwriter at the beginning to help push it along faster. Mm-hmm. And that I wouldn't wait 3 years. I wouldn't shelf it. And I've already got my second book going on up here. And really, once I commit to starting it, I want to get that finished in 3 to 6 months. And I feel that that is absolutely possible because now I know how to do it.
Awesome. Awesome. We are going to transition shortly, and I feel like I don't want to miss anyone's questions here. Thank you, Tina, for catching some of these. I feel like there could be another question, another webinar just on the marketing, just on the marathon. So we will, do you see what I'm talking about? And that's where, to be completely honest, that's my interest. Yeah. And I'll go back to something that, before we jump into marketing strategies, going back to something that Sybil said, which was gold, is strategy, strategy, strategy. Know who you're writing your book for. Yeah. Because, man, you can waste a lot of money on marketing. And know the tangible outcomes that you're looking for. Be able to name them. So we will very much take it under consideration to do another PowHERreads webinar just on marketing and the marathon of it all. But I do want to segue just a little bit here. I just want to make sure that there's absolutely no questions that oh, a good one. So just maybe to finish up this section and leave a couple minutes for Tina to add some comments. I think the answer is yes, but everyone, the three of you all self-published, correct? Working with a publisher, but so you're...
I had a publisher.
Okay, thank you, Sybil. I just wanted to be able to answer that question.
But that being said, self-publishing, like doing my next book, I will likely self-publish that. But rather than just self-publishing, I'm actually going to form my own publishing company. And that's all just marketing smoke and mirrors, by the way, for everyone on the call. It just looks better if you have a publisher versus not out in the real world, although that's becoming less and less important. But there's nothing stopping any of you from then forming your own company name as a publisher.
Yeah. And to be super honest and forthright and transparent, PowHERhouse has a vision to create PowHERhouse Publishing. And that doesn't mean that we're in the market of publishing books. We have a publishing partner that we will be working with for the back end of things. But the next level of our vision is having exactly what you said, the brand of to be known as publishing high caliber lifestyle leadership books for women. So that's kind of our hunger. Tina, I'm just wondering if you'd like to take a minute or two before we have a bit of fun with our last part of the webinar today. Anything that you'd like to reflect on, just with some of the comments and questions that have just come in?
Again, it's just so wonderful. Can I just say that? It's just so wonderful to see women writing books and taking a stand for what they're experts on and what they care about. Because let's be real about this. Like, nobody sets out to write a book that they don't care about. Mm-hmm. They just don't, especially not women. So I just want to call that out. I'm hearing the marketing theme as well. And what I really invite everyone to do here is to, I tend to look at life like books and like stories, and create a character in your life called marketing. Like, walk with marketing in your day-to-day. What do you want to tell the marketing? What do you want to learn from marketing? Make friends with marketing. And I also want writers, because I actually just got off the phone with someone earlier this morning, and she was told that writing personal journeys is the genre of the personal story is dead, and she's right and she's wrong. What she's right about, if I can just take a minute to throw this in here, because what I recognize is that most women do tend to write stories from their personal journey. And what that's about is, after the Brendan Bouchard, the boom of the expert industry, which was really built on sharing our personal story, we're a little tired of personal stories now. As well, after Simon Sinek's, big why explosion, which also brought another drive of personal story writing out there. We're a little tired or skeptical, maybe, because it became marketed rather than owned as a story. And what I said to this woman this morning is, what I want to remind everybody is that at the end of the day, what's compelling for readers is the personal story. And so it's not that the genre is dead, is that it needs to be, there's still a story structure that is required to bring a personal story and connect it to an audience. It's not enough to simply write your story onto the page. There is story structure, and when we own our marketing, we're also kind of owning that story structure. We're thinking about impact. We're thinking about what matters. We're thinking about conflict, our readers' conflict, that humanity piece. So I just wanted to add that, because I'm pretty sure most of us watching this, we are writing some version of a personal story, and to give yourself permission to write it, and remember, make it authentic and follow a structure.
Thank you. I'd like to finish off the webinar with something fun that I've kind of warned our writers about. And it's just taking the last 5 minutes to tell us about your next book. Because I know it's there. I know that you probably just uncorked something that now you can't put the cork back in. And I guess I always want to, I'm always asking that question, what's next? I think that's my job, is to ask that what's next question. So I will start with Zena, if that's okay this time around. And Ms. Zena, what's next for you? What's the next book about?
I haven't said it out loud, you guys. This is the first platform. I've been secret squirreling it away, because honestly, I think one thing I forgot to mention was the roller coaster with the writing of the book. Did any of the authors have that, okay, I just want to burn this friggin' thing now? So I had, and then you love it and then you hate it. So I'm still a little bit in that zone, so I haven't said out loud, but it's a little bit different, but it's a kid's journey. So being on the financial empowerment theme, this one is definitely same target audience, but they're going to have to read it and work with little people. So it's, there's another book in there. There's first that one that's for kids themed with money, and then I have another one percolating, but I'm still recovering from the roller coaster of this book, and that will be kind of like a little bit more in depth then. So that one is there, but I need a little time to recover.
Nice.
Good question. Thanks, Charlene.
Sybil, what's next?
I've got 2 different book ideas. One is Ladies, How to Make Your First Million, and it's going to be targeted at female entrepreneurs. And there will be the business element there, the things that they need to do to ensure that they can grow a business that will generate $1 million of gross revenues every year. And the second component to that will be helping them build up a wealth investment portfolio of $1 million. So it's financial related. And then the other book is also financial related, but it is The Wealthy Life, a guide to taking control of your finances.
Nice.
And so The Wealthy Life is the financial literacy talk show that I produce and host. And so I need a book to go with it.
Totally. Thank you. I love it. Erin, what's next?
I also have two ideas percolating, but they're extremely different. One's actually a fiction story, which is kind of bizarre because I never thought that that would be something I would do. But like your analogy of the cork is off, it's just kind of coming out. So we'll see where that goes. And the second one, it really was born out of my experience last year of just being new at everything I put my hands on. And so, yeah, I have not as nailed down or as buttoned up as Sybil is in terms of titles, but just around just navigating or negotiating with new, because there's been a lot of new.
I like that. Navigating and negotiating with what's new. I love that. Thank you, women. It's so valuable. It's so valuable. The whole point of this series is to speak with powerful women who you all are, who are just a few miles ahead, a few chapters ahead of the journey that we are on to learn and hack and take the shortcuts that we need to. That's one of the things that's going to help move women forward faster. Yeah. As follow-up to this webinar, I promise to send you the recording. I promise to send you a report from Korn Ferry, which I think is very interesting and plays into all of this, not specifically about writing a book, but about moving more women forward in leadership. And I will connect with Tina to send you the template for a one-pager. And last but not least, I will do a little plug. These are free webinars to bring awareness to our next media campaign. And remember, media means the power of influence. And that is a campaign called Epic TV. I encourage you to go on our homepage and check out what Epic TV is. We believe that we can help build visibility of Canadian women through a series of a video series that they own. So much like writing a book, it's a series that we will be helping to promote, and EPIC stands for Exceptional Powerhouses in Canada, and we are currently crowdfunding to help with the development and marketing costs for that series. So it's all part of building your audience and finding your tribe before you write your book, perhaps, or while you do. So I encourage you to check that out. And we're doing our Women Built to Scale work to bring awareness to that series, because how does media and all of these important pieces play that help with that marketing marathon to build our visibility. Thank you for being on the call today. Really appreciate it. And please stay tuned. We will we'll let you know what the next webinar is. And if you enjoyed today, please pass the word along so we can keep growing the Women to Scale group. Thank you. Have a great day, you guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.